When you do something you love, even the 10,000 hours of practice is pretty fun. And so, yeah, I could get better at the guitar, but since it doesn't occur to me how to do that, it would never be easy and fun for me. Welcome to the Working Genius podcast, where we discuss anything and everything having to do with the 6 types of working genius and how it impacts your work and your life. I'm Pat Lencioni, your host, with Cody Thompson, my co-host. How's it going today, Cody?
Thanks for asking again, Pat, because every time I have to come up with a new answer, but I'm doing great. Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine today, actually. A very productive day.
That's great.
So, Working Genius, we love to talk about it. What's the topic today, Cody?
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. I had a situation yesterday. I met this young man, and he said he was trying to talk one of my sons into joining his major in college. And he said, you should become a supply chain major in the business school. And I was like, no, but he wouldn't be good at that. And the guy said, no, it's easy and it's fun. Anybody can do it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is how people get the wrong major or take the wrong job, is because people say it's easy and it's fun. And I realized when you're working within your genius, and this guy is, and studying within his genius, it is easy and fun. And we tend to think, well, everybody else will find it easy and fun too. And we have to realize, and I want to talk about this today, that when not everything is easy for everyone, and we can often make the mistake of thinking because we find it that way, everybody else will. And there's a lot of problems that go with that.
Yeah, it's interesting, Pat. I love that phrase. Like, you know how oftentimes you're on you see infomercials like, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Right.
And there's a certain sentiment with what you're describing with this conversation of like, we using ourselves as the solo data point for what is easy and fun in the context of Working Genius is actually kind of disastrous, because we start to see the world the way that we get joy and fulfillment out of work, and we can inappropriately or even to their detriment lead people down the wrong path.
Yeah, because I'm one of those guys that buys that product and goes, wow, this is so great, it's easy. And then I get it, I'm like, I'm dumber than I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
And we often talk about that because it's not dumb, it's that it's just not the way I think. People go, oh, the instructions are easy on that. And then I get it out. I'm like, this isn't easy at all, and we all do that. And so what's the biggest problem with doing this? Well, we end up thinking that everybody else is like us, and then we make them feel even worse about what they're not good at. Matt was saying before we went on today that, you hire somebody and you go, you can do this job. It'll be easy. I don't think it's hard at all. I've done this before. And then people go about it and they're like, this is really hard for me. And it leaves me to potentially go, wow, you're not even trying. That would be a horrible fundamental attribution error. Well, all you have to do is try harder. And so then you make somebody feel really, really bad. The other problem is when you say it's easy, we tend to go, well, it's easy for me to do it, so it must not be that big a deal. We discount our own contribution because we say, well, the thing I do is easy. And like what I say, well, I write copy for stuff that we're doing at work. I just sit down and do it. It's easy for me. And it's not really an important task because it only takes me 15 minutes to do it. And other people will say, no, it's actually really difficult for us, and you shouldn't devalue your contribution.
Yeah, I love those 2 criteria, the easy and fun, because in some ways, when we talk about Working Genius, we're talking about joy and fulfillment, and they're very much linked, right? Like if you're doing something that is in your sweet spot of Working Genius, it should be more fulfilling and it should come a little bit easier to you. And I love the judgment piece that you said too, Pat, because what tends to happen, and you and I had some of this, this is what Working Genius sort of clarified for me, was I thought we were similar because we were both ENFPs. And then I didn't realize that you have invention and I didn't. And so very regularly you'd be like, well, go ahead and create that new strategy or that new thing, or go to the whiteboard and come up with a new idea for us. And what I thought was, you were saying it in a, hey, that'd be easy and fun. I think you're a competent human being. You should go up there and, just go for it. And for me, it made me not only was it not quite as easy, and it was way less fun than when you do it, it made me sort of undermine my own, like, am I actually good at this? Should I even be here? Can I do that? So there's a level of confidence that it can erode if you approach it that way.
And it's funny because we do it in humility because, so let's just say, you're really good at galvanizing. It's one of your geniuses. And then you can go to somebody else and go, you can do it. Go up there and galvanize this group. And people that don't have galvanizing as a genius, like, please don't make me do that. And you say, no, but it's easy. And what you're trying to say is, I'm not special. But what they're doing is going, well, if you think it's easy and I still can't do it, then I must be really bad at this. And so with the best of intentions, we downplay the difficulty of the things we do, and it ends up making other people feel even worse about themselves, which is kind of ironic, because galvanizing, like to put a person up in front of a group of people and say, convince them to do something they don't want to do, that is the most frightening experience for some people. I mean, I give talks and I do find it easy. And other people will say that is the most terrifying experience of their life. Mm-hmm. And I have to honor that. Now there's things that other people do that I do. I don't understand how people play a guitar, and I look at it and people are like, no, it's easy. Just do this here. And then they'll try to teach me and I'm terrible at it. I don't know how to process on multiple levels. I don't know how to get my fingers around things because I have the hands the size of a Muppet. And so we need to realize that our working geniuses make us good at things in a very easy way, which is wonderful. We have to really ask ourselves, how do other people perceive this?
When I actually love this distinction so much because it's about joy and fulfillment. You think about like the 10,000 hour rule. So you just talked about like the guitar thing. Now you could practice and become better at guitar, which is kind of unique. It doesn't fall specifically into a working genius. But if I said you just need 10,000 hours of galvanizing someone and you got more competent at it, right? Like you got better at getting on stage and rallying a company in a all hands meeting. There's still, even though you might get better at that thing, there's still this element of fulfillment and joy that you're like, well, I'm better at it. I don't enjoy it any more than I did when I was bad at it. I just happen to be slightly more gifted or honed that skill a little bit more. And I think that's another dangerous thing. So it's sort of, one is assuming that it's easy for somebody else because it's easy for you. And then you can push people into training that and getting good at something that is going to burn them out.
That's so interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. It's like the 10,000 hours thing. I was at a bar the other night here in Franklin called Kimbrough's, and they have people in every night, and they're people that show up and play, and they're extraordinary. Chris Stapleton, I guess, used to show up there and just play. And I was watching these two brothers play, and I thought, first of all, it seemed really fluid to them. I mean, this one guy was playing the drums and the harmonica and singing at the same time. I mean, he was like masterful at the harmonica. And his brother was singing and playing a guitar and doing all different kinds of things. And it just occurred to me, and I don't know, if they got paid $200 to play that night, I'd be surprised because it's that kind of an informal place. And I said to the guy I was with, like, how much practice does that take? And you realize when you do something you love, even the 10,000 hours of practice is pretty fun. And so, yeah, I could get better at the guitar, but since it doesn't occur to me how to do that, it would never be easy and fun for me. And so that's another block. It's not just a matter of you need to try harder. You wouldn't enjoy the trying harder. But I started writing when I was a little kid. And I remember throughout my life writing short stories. My wife found a couple the other day going through an old box, and I was like, man, I wrote this when I was little and it sounded like my books today. So sometimes we forget that we've been honing these skills since we were young because we liked it. And so that's why it's called a gift, because it's given to you. If I became decent at the guitar, it still wouldn't be a gift. It would be a manufactured talent that was swimming upstream.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like you think of another genius is like the genius of wonder, for example. It's not in my genius category, it's in my competencies. And I love sort of teasing this idea out because for me, I've had to, out of discipline and restraint, spend more time in wonder. But it's never like this attractive, that's the first thing I'm going to naturally lean into. And when I see, when I have many friends who have wonder as a genius, and if they said to me, well, I love this easy for you to say thing like, well, why don't you just start, like, let's identify the right question. Let's stay at the highest altitude before we jump to discernment. Like it's a strain for me. And I constantly fight this battle of leaning more into my geniuses. And I think this is some of the sentiment we're trying to communicate is we say often one man's trash is another man's treasure. Well, sometimes someone goes, well, here, look, this should look like treasure to you. And you're like, boy, that does
Right.
not look like treasure at all to me.
Right. I didn't think about this when we started this podcast because we sat down to talk about this, but I realized that most of the time when we tell other people things are easy, we think we're doing them a favor. And they're like, yeah, I can't do that. Oh, no, it's easy. And it's like, you're actually really are setting them. I know I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it just dawned on me that like we do that because we're trying to make them more comfortable. Don't worry, you'll be fine. It'll be easy for you. And I know when people say that to me about things that I know deep down inside I'm not good at, I start to get more frustrated because I'm like, oh no, now I put more pressure on myself. Like, oh, you can fix this car. You can change the oil. It's easy. Now, for the rest of my life, changing the oil on a car would never be easy for me because I'm just really bad at like physical manual dexterity things and remembering the right process and procedures. And there's other people who can do it in their sleep. So it really is one of those things that the next time you say to somebody, oh, that's easy, you should probably say for me and people like me. And if it's not easy for you, it's because you have things in your life that are easy that are really hard for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what the right language would be, Pat. Like, we often talk about organizational health being simple but difficult, and maybe there's a parallel there with working genius. Like it can be simple and fulfilling for some people and difficult and not as joy giving for other people. And there is a real danger in trying to assess everybody the same way and thinking of that, oh, this ought to be just as easy for you as it is for me.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's you can almost think of it like food. Like when somebody says seafood is awesome. And my wife and I, among the many things we have in common is that we don't particularly like seafood. Okay. And people go, and every time we go out, they're like, oh, but this is great. Sushi's the best. And it's like, yeah, not for us, And yet we always do want to convince somebody else, well, that's easy. It's fun. It's great. You're going to love it. This movie, no, you're wrong. And it's like, we really do have different tastes and abilities and talents and gifts. And that's a wonderful thing. But gosh, I guess it's like, but I love sushi, so I want you to love sushi too. And it ends up pissing people off.
Well, I love going back to the very start, Pat, where this can happen in the world of work and it can be a trap for years and decades at a time, right? Because if, let's say, your son is not aware of his working genius and he has a friend, mentor, colleague saying, you'll love this line of work. And we're not self-aware enough to know that that's the sushi of my, for me, like then we go and jobs are not like going to a different restaurant. It's not like, oh, I didn't like that meal, I'm going to go get a different one next time. It can be, you can get trapped in terms of what you make and changing jobs can be a big transition. So I think that's why it's so important for people to realize like, hey, be really careful and aware of when somebody's saying, oh, that would be easy or fun for you. And unless they know who you are, they know how you're wired, and they might even have some language around working genius, I'd be really wary to accept that'll be fun and easy for you unless they understood those things.
Yeah, and it's like think about too, like you're on a sports team and you say, oh, you should be the captain. Try to be the captain. And there's certain people that don't want to be the captain. And like one of the things is, it's probably pretty good to have some G, or at least not to hate Gene if you're the captain of somebody, because you're going to have to go get people in order and get people going, let's stretch and let's get ready and let's work out and let's do this. And if a person doesn't have the right things, we tend to like not even think about the fact that it's about gifting, And so it's really important. Parenting is that way too. It's like, no, that's easy. Well, it's easy for you as a dad or a mom because you're wired differently than your kids. And one of the best things for me is when I finally figured out, like Matt, who works with us, my son, I'll come up with an idea and he'll say, that's a terrible idea, Dad. And I'll say, because he's a WD and he's usually right. And I'll go, well, what do you have? And he's like, hell if I know. I mean, I'm not an I. And I would have said before, then you have no right to criticize that. Or I'd have said, oh, come on, it's easy. Come up with a new idea.
Yeah.
So this is a really fascinating thing. Easy. When one man's trash is another man's treasure, one man's ease is another man's terrible frustration.
Yeah.
So it's not easy for everyone. So let's be careful when we say that. All right.
Love it.
Any other applications of that?
I think you used a sushi analogy, a sport analogy, oil change. I think we got all the analogies in there.
All right. There sounds good. Then we'll just end it right there. All right, everybody. Thanks for taking part. We love doing these podcasts for you, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time on the Working Genius Podcast. God bless.